Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of unusual things have happened to me since I became a self-confessed otaku. Some funny, some not so funny, some that have made me cry, both genuinely and figuratively. Some that have actually made me feel downright depressed. I'm not even kidding when I say that. So yeah, basically, this episode of the podcast, it isn't going to be as long as, say, episodes 1 and 3 as an example, but I would still advise popping the kettle on. Because for this episode of the podcast, we are actually going to be discussing some of these things. Just nothing overly special, just a small compilation of stories more than anything else, straight from the horse's mouth. So yeah. Good day, one and all, and to one and all, a good day. My name is Speedy of the Speedy Stuff Podcast, welcoming you all to the 4th episode of the Speedy Stuff Podcast. Before we get on with the main topic of this podcast, I would like to thank you all for the incredibly positive response that the podcast has received. As I said in episode 3. I apologise for the fact that episode 3 was about a week and a half behind schedule. I do apologise for that. Shit happened. But yeah, all jokes aside, I cannot even begin to express my gratitude to you all for all the positive feedback that the podcast has received, because I seem to recall I wrote the script for episode 1. I thought, yeah, well, okay, let's see how it happens. I tried recording it as a 2-parter episode, so basically, episode 1 of the podcast, for those of you who don't know, was my personal top 10 guilty pleasure anime. Episode 1 was only supposed to originally include positions 10 through 6, and then episode 2 was going to be positions 5 through 1, including the honourable mention. Actually, no, hang on. Pop quiz, Hotshot. Pop quiz. Let's see who's been paying attention. What did I say was my honourable mention guilty pleasure anime? If you think you can recall what it was, without going back to listen to episode 1 of the podcast, please do leave your answer in the comments below. It should be extremely interesting to see who's been listening and who hasn't. I digress. The point herein that I'm attempting to make is that the feedback that the podcast has received already, just from the first 2 episodes alone, has been, for lack of better phrasing, absolutely astounding. Because, again, I can remember I wrote the script for episode 1, I recorded it as eventually one big borderline 37-minute audio file. I apologise for bending your ears for that long, by the way. And I thought, well, let's see what happens. If no one listens to it, no one listens to it. At least I will have tried. And I say this predominantly for the fact that I've actually wanted to run the Speedy Stuff podcast since I started YouTube. I seem to recall me and a friend of mine who started off the channel. He was lending me his camera every Thursday. God bless him. And he was going out of his way to try and edit the videos for me on his Apple Mac and all that jazz. If he is listening, by the way, naturally I'm not going to name you because I don't know if you wish to be named or not. But if you are listening, then granted it is a bit late, but this is me thanking you for helping me get my foot in the door nearly 9 years ago now. Yeah, that's right, the main channel is nearly 9 years old. So yeah, all jokes aside though, again, seriously, thank you all so much for the remarkably positive feedback that the podcast has received. It has been, for lack of better phrasing, completely and utterly mind-blowing, so thank you all so much for that. Anyway, yes, on to the main topic of the podcast proper. I apologise for sidetracking for so long. I just needed to basically get that off my chest. But yes, the topic of this instalment of the Speedy Stuff podcast is again a bunch of stories that I've experienced firsthand post self-confessed otaku. The first story that I want to discuss was actually involving one of the first few anime that I ever actually watched all the way through. Now, the first anime that I watched, I didn't even know it was an anime at the time, because I was like 4, 5 years old, 6 at the oldest. But the first anime that I ever watched, who remembers this, was Beyblade. Yep. Beyblade was actually one of the first, if not the first anime that I watched. I mean, granted, there were some occasions where I actually watched the original, the original Astro Boy anime on Saturday morning cartoon reruns. Anyway, but the point is fast forward a couple of years. I say a couple of years. Fast forward to, I don't know, about 4 years ago, so 4 or 5 years ago. So I was 16, 17 at best. And a friend of a friend comes up to me and he says, "Oh, hey, I've just bought these 2 really cool anime from CEX." And, he told me what they were called. He told me about them, and I thought, hey, that first one, the first one was Gunslinger Girl, by the way. I said, hey, that first one doesn't sound too bad. Would you consider loaning me, or lending to me, Gunslinger Girl Season 1? He said, sure, no problem. Naturally, of course, he wanted to take them home first, watch them himself, and in turn make sure that all 3 discs were working, because he had Season 1 of Gunslinger Girl split into 3 separate volumes. I said, sure, that's no problem. Naturally, take as long as you wish. About a week later, he comes back to me with them. He gives them to me, and he says, there you are. They do work. All 3 discs do work. Hope you enjoy. There's no rush in in giving them back, although I would preferably like them back within about 4 to 6 weeks. I said, done deal, that's no problem, thank you for lending them to me. I got home, and that very same evening, they went straight into my DVD player. I binge-watched the entire first season of Gunslinger Girl, a 13-episode season, in an evening. Literally, it took up about, let me think, there are 13 episodes. Each episode is about 22 minutes in length. So, this is going to be fun. You're all going to try and hear me do math. Let me think. We'll say each episode was 30 minutes in length. 30 times 12 is 360. 360 minutes in hours is 6. So it took me just under 6.5 hours to watch the entirety of this anime. I seem to recall I started watching them for about 7:30, I think it was, as an example. 6.5 hours. So that would have seen me through to about 2 in the morning. And I seem to recall it got to the end episode, it got to the end credits of the Season 1 finale. I leaned back in my chair and I said, fuck me, that was amazing. So the following day I went back and rewatched it again, but this time in the original Japanese dub. And I frickin' loved the original Japanese dub of Gunslinger Girl. Although, granted, it didn't come without a couple of critiques from myself, being that I thought that some voices in the Japanese dub suited characters more than the voices that the English dub was given. Simultaneously, I also listened to a couple of the English dub voices and I thought, yeah, okay, this voice actor brought something a bit different to this character as opposed to the original Japanese dub voice actor. 4 days pass after this guy has let me borrow the DVDs. 4 days pass. I give them back to him. And he said, what, did you not like it? I said, like it? I fucking loved it. I even went back and watched the original Japanese dub, and I shit you not, his jaw dropped to the fucking floor. He just looked at me and went, you what? I said, yeah. I went back and even watched the original Japanese dub. And he said, good on you. Because I wouldn't be able to sit long enough to watch the original Japanese dub. Those were his words, not mine, and I just thought, yeah, well, that's fair enough. Half of it, granted, is looking at the lower half of the screen to read the subtitles, and naturally, of course, depending what it is that the characters say, those subtitles have been and gone before you even bloody know it. So yeah, that was that. And then the other anime that he told me about, which he actually lent to me about a week later, was an anime that I do recommend to a degree. I do recommend this anime to an extent. And I say that predominantly for the fact that it's an incredible anime from what I can recall in relation of the art style. The characters were a bit hit and miss. Again, I'm working off of memory here. I only saw the anime the once. But if you like your anime that have extremely morbid endings, then boy howdy is this the anime for you. The anime was called She, the Ultimate Weapon. And let me tell you something, from a personal standpoint, I am never fucking well watching this anime again. You couldn't pay me enough to go back and give this anime a second viewing. Purely for just how morbid the ending was. Alright? It basically centers around this young couple. They're both still in high school. But the girl in the relationship, she's actually from what I can recall, she was a re-engineered human. And by that what I mean is she had basically become more machine than she had human. So much so that she was basically, and I shit you not when I say this, she was basically a walking, talking nuclear bomb. Let that sink in for a couple of seconds. Alright, this guy, God bless him, was going out with this sweet, innocent young girl, but deep down inside, she was basically an atom bomb waiting to go off, both more literally than figuratively, actually. Anyways, it all progresses. She eventually gets pulled out of school to assist with the Japanese military. I can't remember the exact reasons behind it, but therein lies the point. And spoilers, it all ends with her realising just what a huge upset all the war that's been going on in the background of the show is. She realises just how much turmoil a lot of people are going through, how much pain they're going through, how much suffering, and she realises, I can't keep going like this. And if I can't keep going like this, then neither can the rest of the earth. So she detonates. I shit you not, she self-destructs, and she wipes out every person on the face of the planet except for her love interest, which basically leaves him on his Todd as the last human being in existence. How fucking depressing is that? Now, I will admit, I gave them back to my friend of a friend. And I said, I am never watching that anime again. You couldn't pay me enough to watch it. And he said, oh, why is that? And I told him, because the ending was extremely morbid. It genuinely is. It's actually an extremely depressing ending. And I just thought, nah, I'm not watching that again. I can't even bring myself to go back and watch the original Japanese dub of this anime. That's how morbid the ending was for me. And he said, yeah, I know, it's basically supposed to be like that. He actually lent it to another friend after I'd finished my loan with it. And this other friend came back and said pretty much the same thing. He said, I'm never watching that anime again. It's way too depressing. In fact, this other person got so depressed from the finale of She the Ultimate Weapon that this guy actually broke down into tears. It brought a grown man to tears, for fuck's sakes. That's how powerful and depressing the end of this anime was. It brought a grown fucking man to tears. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, yeah, I made the right choice in backing away from that one. So that was that. Let me think. What happened then? Oh yes, 2013. 2013 rolls along, and I hear that a arena here in Cardiff were having a film and comic con. And I thought, oh, okay, that'll be pretty cool. It'll be my first comic con, you know. It really was. Up till then, I was, for lack of better phrasing, a comic con virgin. So I went there. The queue, fuck me, the queue to get in was horrendous. It really honestly was, although I did actually pick a bit of a stupid time to go. But yeah, the queue was absolutely horrendous. I was standing in this queue for, it must have been 40 minutes? I can't remember exactly, but it was somewhere within that 10-minute bracket. And I get in. The first thing I saw when I walked in was the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard, the actual General Lee. It wasn't a replica, it was an actual prop car that was used on the show. And more specifically, the Dukes of Hazzard film that had that one guy from Jackass starring in it. I can't remember the guy's name. Was it Steve-O? I don't know. Someone will probably tell me simultaneously. Maybe somebody won't. I digress. And I had my picture taken next to it, which was really cool. And then, of course, because he actually married a girl from Wales, David Hasselhoff made a guest appearance. The Hoff, Michael Knight, made an appearance at Cardiff Film and Comic Con. Holy shit! This was amazing for me, especially when you take into account that I'd actually watched a couple of episodes of the original Knight Rider television show on reruns on a channel that is sadly no longer with us. But I can remember I watched the shows and I thought, oh my god, I want that car. I was 8. Shut up. I'm allowed to dream. So that happened. A couple of the actors who played the Doctor in Doctor Who were there. I seem to recall Peter Davison was there, who was... he played the 5th Doctor, so that was pretty cool. But that wasn't the most humouring bit of the day for me. The most humorous thing that happened to me on that day was... I was walking down one of the aisles between the stands. Between the vendors' stands. And these two young men are walking up in the opposite direction. So I'm walking back towards the entrance doors of the arena. They're walking away from the entrance doors. One of them was cosplaying as David Tennant's Doctor. The other one was cosplaying as Matt Smith's Doctor. And we were approaching one another. And I just so happened to look over to them both, and I thought, wow, those are really, really good. Because, I kid you not, they had every minute detail nailed, which was phenomenal. And of course, you know, I was a bit overwhelmed by it all because, you know, it was the first Comic-Con that I had ever attended. And, you know, I didn't say in, like, a snidey manner or anything. I said it literally as a compliment in passing. I look over to them both, and I said, oh, nice cosplay, guys. And the guy cosplaying as Matt Smith's Doctor, this will stay with me for the rest of my days. This is a story that I'll probably bore my kids with, that I'll probably bore their kids with, that I'll probably even bore their kids with if I'm lucky enough to see that age. Touch wood. But the guy cosplaying as Matt Smith's Doctor, he turns to me and he goes, "Cosplay? What's that?" This guy was so in character, it was unbelievable. I actually stood there, I laughed with him, I actually went out of my way to explain what cosplay was to him. And he went, "Oh, right, well, that's very, very interesting. Thank you very much for telling me." And he shook my hand and everything, and I was like, oh my god, what just happened? I couldn't get over it. I really honestly couldn't. That is going to be something that will stick with me for the rest of my days. I was beaming for the rest of the day. I was so happy, and I'm smiling right now. I'm beaming like a fucking idiot, just reminiscing about it. It was incredible. What happened then? Oh yes. Then fast forward a couple of no, sorry. fast forward a week to the following weekend, and I actually made a couple of vlogs about this. The UK PonyCon was here in Cardiff, and I attended the UK PonyCon 10th anniversary convention, which, you know, I'm graced, I guess, to say that they picked Cardiff to celebrate their 10th anniversary of the convention. So I go along. I actually met a couple of friends who were also in the Brony fan circle. I don't know if they still are. I know I've been flagging in and out of it. And I actually stayed till the very end, because at 9 o'clock on the Saturday, which was the day I went, they had a PonyCon pub quiz. I got put into a group with 4 complete and utter strangers who, I kid you not, at the end of it, the 5 of us were laughing like we had known each other for years. It was absolutely phenomenal. And it was a bloody lengthy pub quiz. I'm not going to beat about the bush. It was a lengthy ass pub quiz. It was like a 3-hour pub quiz. It started at 9 and it finished well after midnight. I actually missed the final bus home, and I had to call my mum out to come and pick me up at 12:30 on a Sunday morning. Oh, she was not happy. Oh, she was not happy. But I couldn't stop smiling because of all the friends and all the connections that I had made there. And I, unfortunately, to this day, I haven't seen them since. I haven't heard or seen from them since, which is a massive, massive upset. But yeah, it was great. It even got to one point where the entire room just got up and started singing "We Will Rock You" by Queen. It was brilliant. But that all linked back to a question in the pub quiz, which was to try and identify a bunch of songs from the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic franchise. And the song that actually kicked off that karaoke segment unintentionally was a song from the first My Little Pony Equestria Girls called The Cafeteria Song. And the start of it, it had the same beat as We Will Rock You. And as they were running through the answers, one bloke from the back of the hall, he shouts, "Do us a favour, play the start of it again." So they rewind back to the start of the audio clip, and he just starts singing "We Will Rock You" by Queen. Eventually, the entirety of the room is up on their feet, giving all we will rock you." It was fucking brilliant! Oh no, I've just sang a bit of the song. Shit, here come the copyright police. Shit. Oh dear. But yeah, seriously, it was so good. It really was. It was so good. So that happened, and to be fair, all of these things have left me chuckling with delight, but the one thing that has happened to me whilst being a self-confessed otaku, which will... how can I phrase it? I don't want to necessarily say that it'll haunt me for the rest of my days, but simultaneously I don't want to say that it'll stick with me for the rest of my days. So it's neither here or there. It's a literal case of 6 of one, half dozen the other. And I'm going to do some unintended product placement when I talk about this final story, folks. I was sitting at a Costa. I was sitting in Costa in town. For those of you who are outside of the UK and you don't know what Costa is, think of it as Starbucks. If you're in America, if you're in Canada, think of it as a Tim Hortons. Speaking of, actually, I am going to go off on a bit of a tangent here. There is actually a Tim Hortons opening here in Cardiff pretty soon. I think it's opening either before or after Christmas. I honestly can't see the point, but oh well. I don't say that because we've got enough baristas here in Cardiff as is. I just don't see what it's all about. I'll see myself out, don't worry. Anyways, yes, as I was saying, I was sitting in this Costa in town, waiting. I just ordered a cup of tea and a toasted sandwich, And they said, all right, take a seat, we'll bring it over to you. So, I find a table, I sit down, and I pull out this manga that I'm reading, this sort of manga compilation book, which is called the Unofficial Hatsune Mix. I actually do recommend picking it up if you ever do see a copy of it in... I actually got it from Waterstones, which, again, for those of you who live across the pond, Waterstones is a bookstore here in the UK. It's a huge book-selling franchise here in the UK. And every time I go into town, I usually stop off at Waterstones to have a browse. If I don't stop off at Waterstones to have a browse whilst I'm in town, something's wrong. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. But the point is that I literally just bought it as well. So I'm sitting there, I'm in Costa, I'm starting to read it. And anyway, this staff member, he brings over a tray with my toasted sandwich and my cup of tea. Because I'm stereotypically British like that. And he says, oh, what's that you're reading, if you don't mind my asking? And so I tell him, it's a manga that I've just bought. And he goes, oh. And there's this really ominous, awkward silence between us both. And I say, what? What's wrong? He looks at me. I kid you not, he makes deathly clear eye contact with me. He looks me dead in the eye and he says, oh, you're one of those psychedelic retards that enjoys Japanese cartoons. I'm sorry, what? I kid you not. He literally had the gall to call me a psychedelic retard who enjoys Japanese cartoons, and without a hint of irony, he picks up the serving tray and walks back to the till. So I'm now sitting here in the corner trying to enjoy a book that I've just bought, and this cheeky son of a bitch has the nerve to call me a psychedelic retard for enjoying something that wasn't made in the UK. What? And I kid you not, I drank the tea as quick as I could. I think I took about 2, maybe 3 bites from this toasted sandwich. I then looked it up and down on the plate and thought, yeah, suddenly I'm not overly hungry. I think I'll go and eat somewhere else. And I got up, walked straight out of that Costa. I haven't been back there since. Not even kidding. But yeah, seriously though, talk about shite quality, talk about shite customer service. Who, in any form of business, walks up to a customer and calls them a psychedelic retard without losing their job? Who? Who does that? And more to the point, why did he do it? I don't know if he was dared to do it. I don't know if someone asked him to do it on the off chance. I don't even know if he did it just to see how I would react. Because to be perfectly honest, as soon as he said it, I felt like picking up the tea